Miss Nelson, thanks for inviting us. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
I'm Mr. Bradshaw. I run the youth symphony for the Cape Ann Symphony. There are fifth graders here.
Yeah.
Do you remember last year you went to a symphony concert?
Yeah.
Well, you're going to go to one again. It'll be all completely different, of course. But you can't answer the question about the hose horn, okay? Because you probably already know the answer from last year. Okay, so what are we doing here? Well, in 2 weeks from Friday, you're going to a concert, and it's going to be a beautiful concert with a great symphony orchestra, and they will be sitting way away from you up on a stage, and it'll be very hard to see what's going on. So what we do is we bring some of these people from the orchestra to you 2 weeks before the concert, and they tell you what they're going to do. And then we'll play Where's Waldo, and when we get to the concert, we'll try and find them on stage. So that'll be fun. So let me tell you who's here and what they do, a little bit about what they do. We have a couple of Gronk fans here, I see, but this is our Tom Brady. Right here is Mr. Alan Harlock. He's the quarterback of the orchestra, the concert master. He'll tell you what he does. You can applaud for him if you want. This is Mrs. Susanna Powers, and she's the leader of the second violins, and she'll tell you what she does.
Hello.
Fifth graders will probably remember Mrs. Harrison from last year, our first French horn, solo French horn player. And she will teach you. This lady here is a big deal this year because she's going to be playing a concerto, a flute solo in which she stands in front of the orchestra and memorizes thousands and thousands of notes by memory and plays them, and she also has to remember all the rests as well. So this is a big flute year, and she will tell you what she does. This is Mrs. Stephanie Stathos. This man here taught in this building for about 100 years, I'm pretty sure. And Mr. David Benjamin, and he is our woodwind specialist and former manager of the orchestra. You can give him a hand. Okay, we're ready to go, and maybe we'll play some music to start.
Yes.
Great.
Snippet of music called the chase scene from the William Tell Overture, which is for the William Tell. And now Mr. Harlock is going to tell you about his job.
My job as concert master, sitting in the front of the section of the violins, the first violins, is one of them is to tune the orchestra. So when you walk into the auditorium on the day of the concert, you'll see us. Everybody will be playing and warming up, and you'll hear a lot of noise going on. As soon as I stand up, everybody's going to stop. I feel very powerful when I can do that. Stand up and everybody stops playing. And I'll ask the oboe player, in this case, since we don't have oboe, we'll do a clarinet, to give us an A for all the wind instruments. And so we all match pitch, and they can all adjust their instruments to get that matching pitch. Then we'll get another A from the oboe for the strings. And then when that's all done, I'll sit down and the conductor will come out and lead the concert. The job also of the first violin is sometimes to play a solo. I might have a nice tune to play, maybe something like that. Sometimes we do double notes like this. Or so. Basically, I'll tell you a little bit about the violin, and then Suzanne will tell you more. Basically, play with the bow. And what is this white stuff called?
The horsehair.
Yeah. They don't kill the horse, they just give him a haircut. And these little hairs have little teeth on them, and when we draw across the string, it causes the strings to vibrate, sending the sound through this bridge into this specially made hollow box. By the way, some of these are very, very old. She has an old one, I have a young one. Mine's only 30 years old, she's about 300 years old. But I started playing the violin in the 5th grade in Salem Public School. Anybody here play string instrument? No?
I used to play a keyboard.
Oh, that's not a string though, it's a string with a bow.
Oh.
All right? The other thing about, let me tell you a little bit about the string section. The violins are divided up into first and seconds, but on the other side of the conductor, on your right as you come in, will be these big instruments you have to sit down with. You know what those are?
The cello?
Cellos, right. The big grandmother of the section, we call it. And then behind the cellos are going to be these great big ones. What are those called?
Bass?
Yeah, string basses, and we'll have 4 or 5 of those guys playing. And there's another instrument that looks like this, but it's a little bit bigger, that will be sitting inside of the cellos. You know what that is?
The viola?
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, the violas don't have this high string like we do. They have a lower string than this one. What else? You want to do a little bit?
Let me talk about the second violin
Well,
first,
I'll
yeah.
turn it over now to Suzanne, and she'll tell you about what the second violins do.
Yes, I'm the leader of the second violin section. That means I have 8 more players sitting behind me, and they all play the same part that I play. But our music part is different from the one the first violins play. We play harmony to the first violins to make it more beautiful. Oftentimes the first violins play very high. They might be playing up here. And the second violins might be playing an octave lower. So we support their beautiful melody. The second job I have is to pay attention to the way Mr. Horrellook's bow is going, so that we don't go opposite. When he goes up bow, I go down bow. Sure.
Okay, so
Doesn't look very good if I go opposite, right? At the same time, it sounds different. If I do my own bowings, it won't sound very beautiful in the orchestra. So when we play that with the same bowing, it looks good and it sounds better. So look for us in 2 weeks when you come to the concert and see how beautiful all the violins go in the same direction with the bow. We have a little duet, just a few measures for you to hear how we play together by different parts to make a beautiful harmony. You know the tune? Have you seen yet? What movie is that from?
It is from Aladdin.
Very good. Well done. And I hand it over to Mrs. Harris.
So, this is a French horn, and we will be in the very back of the orchestra. You'll see us in the back. There'll be French horns. Then there's another instrument. There are 3 more brass instruments in that family. Can somebody name one of them?
Trumpet.
Trumpet. Okay, there's 2 more. What do you think? Almost said it. Trombone, yeah. And there's another one. What's the biggest one in the back, you said? How about you over here?
Tuba.
Very good. So there'll be the French horns, the trumpets, the trombones, and then the tuba. The tuba sits next to the tall string basses. They play a lot of the low notes together. So the French horn, a lot of people ask me about my right hand. Why do I put it there? The main reason is it helps me hold the horn properly. If I didn't hold it, it would kind of go like this. I don't usually stand up to play, I sit down. And then I use the left hand for the keys. And this is what it sounds like. You guys know that? What is it?
Ode to Joy.
Ode to Joy, that's right. Now, this is the question that Mr. Bradshaw was talking about that I want the 4th graders to guess. If you take this horn and take the tubing and stretch it out all in one long tube, how many feet do you think it would be? You the 4th graders over here? What do you think?
30 feet.
A little long. How about in the back?
25.
Getting closer, one more guess.
27.
Nope. It's about 15 feet. So I have something to show you. Mr. Bradshaw's gonna help me. This is my hose horn. You could play it. Somebody
I'm the
suggested that.
official hose holder.
If we made it the shape of a horn, you could play it. But I made this to show you how long the tubing is in a horn. If you stretch it all out, which you obviously cannot really do. Okay.
Somebody call a plumber, quick.
Please by you.
She stretched her horn out, she'd have to carry it around in a big old minivan.
I know, and you'd have to come with me.
On the roof.
Yeah, I'd have to carry it for her.
So this is a 15-foot tubing, and that's the average size. They might vary a little bit, and a funnel, and I taped it on the end. And I can put my mouthpiece in the end and make a sound. Should we do the vibration?
Yeah, you
Okay.
can feel the actual
But you
vibration.
can put your hands on the tube, just we don't
Put your
yank
hands on
it.
the tube.
We're gonna take turns. Ready?
Isn't that weird? It's like a slinky inside there.
Let's do another row. I guess I gotta get a longer tube.
Yep, you're gonna have to get a bigger horn.
Okay, everybody, grab it, just be gentle, because my mouth is on it. Okay, we need another group. Quickly, quickly. These guys over here.
Okay, you guys wanna feel the vibrations?
So let's pass it on to the flute.
How many of you guys have played this instrument? That's awesome, that's what I thought, and I'm really excited to hear that. That means that you all have experience playing a woodwind instrument. And all of our woodwind instruments are made in a very similar way. Like your recorders, all four of the woodwind instruments in the orchestra are based on a hollow tube, right, with holes in it. And in some cases, our instruments have keys, so we can close them easily, and in other cases, we just use our fingers. But basically, our woodwind instruments are hollow tubes with holes and keys. So that is because when we close the keys, it changes the pitch. Now, the sound is produced very differently on all of the woodwind instruments in the orchestra, and I want to see how much you guys know about our section. This is a flute. Mr. Benjamin has a clarinet, and there are two others still in the orchestra. In a standard orchestra. Does anyone know the name of one of them? It looks like a clarinet, yeah?
Oboe.
Oboe, awesome, good job. The last one is a harder one. It's really big. You have to sit down to play it. It's made of red maple wood. Bassoon, fabulous. That's exactly right. So the four instruments in the orchestra in the woodwind section are the flute, being the highest, the clarinet, the oboe, and the bassoon. Now I'm going to show you how the sound is made on the flute and play a little bit for you. And then Mr. Benjamin's going to take over with the other instruments. But raise your hand really quietly if you've ever blown across the top of a bottle and gotten that whoo, that foghorn sound. So that's exactly what I have to do. All of you who play recorder, which is most of you, and have blown across a bottle would be awesome flute players. And I encourage you to try playing a flute, because all I do is I put my lips in that funny shape, that flute face we call it, like you're blowing across a bottle. And my lips shape the air and create the sound. So this is what a flute sounds like. Are there any flute players in here?
No.
Awesome, good job. Good job. Everyone should try, at least try one of these. That's as low as I can go, but I can go higher. Would be a high note. So I'm just shaping the air with my lips. Now tell me this, if I want to play even higher, in the flute family is another instrument. It looks like this. Can someone raise their hand and tell me what the name of this one is? All the way in the back?
A clarinet.
No, you're close. It's made of the same material, but it begins with P. One more guess. No one? Yeah? No, but that's a good guess. It's a piccolo. And piccolo is the Italian word for little, so it's basically a little flute. It's identical to a flute, except it's 8 notes higher. So the fun thing about the piccolo is that for its size, you might think it doesn't have a lot of power, but it's super high and super loud when I want it to be. I'm not going to play that for you right now because it'll blast your ears out, but I'll play quietly and I'll show you how high it goes. That's pretty high. If any of you had dogs, they'd probably run and hide in another room. The piccolo, there's usually just one in an orchestra, but on special occasions, all the flute players will pick up a piccolo and play. And one of those very special occasions is on the 4th of July. And I would bet that most of you, or many of you, have either heard the piece I'm going to play a tiny bit of, or seen it in person. On the 4th of July, we often play marches by our March King, our American composer John Philip Sousa. And one of his most famous marches is called The Stars and Stripes Forever. And that has one of the most famous piccolo solos in the whole world in it. And we all get really excited to play that. I'm just going to play a couple of measures, and you can quietly raise your hands if you've heard this little bit before, maybe on the 4th of July. Yeah, so that's our big piccolo moment. I'm going to show you one other instrument in the flute family. This is called an alto flute, and it's lower. It's sometimes in the orchestra, not as commonly as you'd see the other two. It's used a whole lot in jazz and other kinds of music. It has a beautiful sound, and you'll hear right away after the piccolo. It's a completely different sound. To me, a very beautiful sound, but very different. See, it's very kind of hollow and open. Because it's a flute year, I thought I'd share that. There are two other flutes that are bigger that I couldn't possibly bring here unless I rented a truck. We're going to play a little excerpt, it features two flutes and solo violin, as well as, well, a whole string orchestra. But we've picked this little excerpt to show you because it features the flutes, and we're in flute year, so flute mode. 1 and 2 and...
Okay. All right, everybody, there's so many things to tell you about today. First, let's talk about the sound that all these instruments make. We started by hearing the violins. Now, all the instruments and all the music that you hear has to start with something to make the sound. Does anybody know what it is? Anybody? What do you think? What do you think? Not necessarily a reed, because this is Harrison with a French horn has a mouthpiece, the violins have strings. All those things have to do something to make sound. Yeah, go ahead.
Vibration.
Yes, thank you. Everything has to vibrate to make sound, to turn that into music. So the strings, the violin's strings are actually going to vibrate. Would you pluck some strings? If you're close enough, yeah, if you're close enough, you can see the strings bouncing. Now, the brass players make all their sound the same way. Their vibrations come from putting their lips together tightly and blowing, and you can do that right now with me. Good. That's called buzzing. Now the woodwinds are something totally different, and probably the most unique one is Miss Stasto's with her flute. Excellent. Now what she's done is make a very tiny hole with her lips. And I want you to take the back of your hand and just blow against the back of your hand. And make believe it's a birthday candle. You're just trying to make the flame flicker. It doesn't take much more ear than that to make the flute work. And that ear is actually making the sides of the flute vibrate. The instrument itself vibrates. The rest of the woodwind family, the clarinet, that's this one, the saxophones, the oboes, and the bassoons, all have reeds. And reeds are little things made out of cane. We can think of it as wood. They're a plant. I'll just pass these around. You folks can pass these around. Here you go. Catch. And one for back here, okay? And they're dainty little things. The end of them is very thin. They're made from cane, which is a little bit like a piece of bamboo. Now what I would like you to think about for just a second, I'm going to move over here to use the edge of the desk. I have this ruler. I want you to think of the ruler as a reed. So the reed wants to vibrate. So we touch it with our tongue while we blow. Can you hear that? And most of you can probably see the vibrations, yes? You see the ruler bouncing. Well, that's just how we play the clarinet, the saxophone, the oboe, the bassoon. What I would like you to do is take your little finger with me, and you're going to put your little finger on your bottom lip. Your top teeth may touch your fingernail, like so. Now you're going to draw down your lip over all that, and you're going to say 2, and flick your tongue on the end of your finger while you do that, and go 2, 2, 2, 2. That's how we play these instruments. I'll do the same thing with my clarinet. No mystery here. I'm just going to put it in like we did with a little finger. Little skin over my bottom lip. Flick the end of the reed while I blow. As long as I do that, as long as I keep the air traveling over the reed, there'll be sound coming out of the instrument. I brought something special with me today. This is an old clarinet with no keys on it. During World War II, when people were donating metal to the United States to help with the war effort, somebody took all the keys and the bands off of this clarinet and donated the parts. Donated the metal. Here, I'll pass that around. You can all just see. It's made out of wood. It's solid with ebony. And they drill out the wood, they drill out the holes, they attach the keys, put a mouthpiece on, and boom, you have music. I'm going to play a little excerpt in 2 different octaves. It's going to sound a little different each time, but I think it's a song you've probably heard. And that is from which movie? Moana. Okay, now that's played down low. The clarinet also plays high, so here's the same melody up higher. So it's an expressive instrument. It plays low, it plays high. I wanted to just say one thing about the difference between the clarinets and the saxophones. Their reeds are single reeds. That's the reed that you're passing around now. It goes on the mouthpiece and you blow across the mouthpiece. The oboe and the bassoon have reeds that actually have 2 sides. There's a top and a bottom. So to make that sound, you would not let your tooth touch the top of the reed. You'd have to put both lips over your teeth. Try that. Just like that. And you would still flick the end of the reed and blow. 2, 2. Yes, sir.
I play the saxophone.
You play the saxophone, so you can appreciate what we're talking about, touching the reed.
I used to.
Okay, and that's all I have to say to you about the Woodwinds. And right now, we would like to play little bits and pieces of all the music that you're going to hear at the concert. The first piece that we played for you was William Tell. We played that little opening from the William Tell Overture. That's called the chase scene. And we ask you to imagine that somebody's chasing people on horses and through the woods. But I think we'll move on from there and ask Ms. Stathos to tell us a little bit about
Sure. We're going to play 2 excerpts by a piece by Edvard Grieg, and the first one is called Morning Mood. So what I like to think of, or what I want you guys to do, is sit super quietly and listen to this and think why he might have called it morning mood, if it represents a morning mood to you, if it's the kind of way you feel in the morning. The flute has the melody for a second, and then we're all going to play it together.
last weekend?
On
On a weekend, right.
On a weekend.
The next excerpt is from the Hall of the Mountain Kings, and a couple of classes told us that they thought this should have been the morning mood when you hear the end of it. We'll see if you agree. I'm just going to play a really short excerpt for you from the Flute Concerto that I get to play. I think Mr. Bradshaw mentioned that I am playing this one movement of a concerto that I'm super, super excited about. And the theme I'm going to play now, and just tell you that the orchestra plays this theme, and then I play it, and then the orchestra does, and then I do it. So if you hear this one phrase, this makes up the whole, pretty much the whole piece that you're going to hear. Different variations in different keys.
A little earlier, Ms. Stathos played the solo on the Piccolo, and she mentioned that it might be played on July 4th. It was from a march by John Philip Sousa. This next piece of music is called the 1812 Overture, and we're going to play just a little bit of it, but you may hear it on July 4th, and you may actually have some fireworks going off when you hear this music. That is on the program is a song that you hear very often, but we're going to play a little game right now called Name That Tune. And we're going to play a little bit and ask you to try to guess what it is. We'll see how good you are. This will be a real test. One note.
One note.
Anybody want to guess? Yeah, second thoughts, I can tell. How about two
No one
notes?
knows that. Two notes.
Two notes. What do you think?
DNA?
Nope. Sorry, you're wrong. Three notes. What do you think? That's not it. That's not a song. Star Spangled Banner. Thank you. You win the free trip to Essex. Congratulations. All right. Here we go. This is how the concert starts, and you have a special job when you're in the audience. We won't do it right now, but in the audience you have to stand up at attention and put which hand over your heart? Your right hand over your heart. And if you know the words, please sing along. And if you don't, you can always sing la la la. Here we go. One.
What do you think? Did you have a good time today?
Yes!
We're gonna have a great time in 2 weeks. I've got an awesome audience, and we will see you in Manchester, Essex Regional High School, 2 weeks from Friday. Thank you very much for being such a good audience today. And you can tell them